a rain-soaked city, a director who hates compromise. Test audiences flinch, executives sharpen notes, a voiceover appears. An ending is stitched on like a bandage over neon. Years later, he hunts his cut, frame by frame, to take it back. Los Angeles, late post-production. Night mixes with rain on the Burbank lot. The director watches a rough cut that feels alive, haunted, and uncompromised. He believes the mood is the story, that silence can talk, that the city itself carries the plot. Executives see risk. They see money on fire. They ask for insurance in the shape of explanation. He resists, certain the dream dies if he narrates it. Preview cards arrive like verdicts. Denver and Dallas do not warm to ambiguity. Notes multiply. Some are practical, some are fearful, most are loud. The relationship shifts. Meetings feel less like collaboration and more like containment. The clock runs faster. Costs loom larger. And the film that once seemed untouchable becomes a patient on the table. But then the mandate lands. A voiceover to guide the audience, an ending to reassure them. The story must be explained, not felt. The images must be told what they mean. Editors try to thread two movies into one. The cut starts to wobble. The pace goes flat where it once pulsed. The director keeps asking for air. The room keeps sealing the windows. He records narration he does not want. He trims images he swore were the marrow. He stays late in rooms that smell like old coffee and hot tape. He argues for shadows and is handed light. He argues for uncertainty and is handed certainty. He keeps pitching the film he shot. The film on the timeline keeps moving away from it. It was butchered. The release opens to a world that does not yet know what was taken to make it smooth. Some critics dismiss the mood as murk. Some audiences hear the story but no longer feel it. Box office is not a rescue boat. The studio moves on. The director does not. He files away every change, every splice, every compromise, like evidence for a trial that has not been scheduled. Here is the part people forget. The cut does not die. It waits. In screenings, on tapes, in interviews, in the stubborn memory of crew who remember how it once breathed. A decade turns the film from problem to cult. The wound becomes an argument, and the argument becomes a plan. The consequence lands quietly. He will hunt his version, piece by piece, until the film matches the weather in his head. The theatrical cut buys time, not surrender. Next comes the first reclamation, a studio-sanctioned recut that removes the voice explaining the dream, and the bill comes due. The 90s arrive with a second chance disguised as caution. A studio-sanctioned recut, limited resources, and a narrow window. The marching orders are tidy. Remove the narration, unpaste the sunshine at the end, and let the city breathe. Archivists hunt elements. Old reels are coaxed awake. The director is consulted but fenced by process and paperwork. It is not a full return of power. It is permission to tidy up a wound. The work is pragmatic, almost forensic. Notes from the original sessions are read like weather reports. Alternate takes resurface. Negative trims are matched to memories. The soundscape is cleaned. The rhythms reset. The pauses allowed to hang. No one can rebuild every corridor, but the mood returns to its original temperature. The difference is felt more than tallied. People who love the idea of the film finally hear it think. But then the victory proves complicated. The label says director's cut, and the label sticks like glue. Purists cheer. Reporters ask whether this is truly his version. Insiders recall polite disagreements about authorship, about who steered and who signed off. The director nods at improvements and winces at limits. He calls it a step, not an answer. The film is closer to the one in his head, but not inside it yet. No voiceover, no happy ending. The audience catches up. Critics who once shrugged revisit the case and change their verdicts. The movie graduates from problem child to cult cornerstone. Midnight screenings pack out. University classes assign it without the apology paragraph. The film's look, once accused of coldness, now reads as prophecy. The argument that simmered in back rooms moves into magazines, retrospectives, and box sets. The culture realigns. Here's the part people forget. The recut also arms the director. It proves the appetite for ambiguity, proves that silence can carry meaning, proves that the world he built had been muffled, not empty. He starts collecting leverage the way others collect props. He speaks more plainly in interviews. He pushes for deeper restoration and full sign-off next time. The chessboard tilts toward authorship. Consequence. A door opens to a final attempt under his complete control. The promise is simple and absolute. No narration, no studio patchwork. Every splice signed. The next chapter will not argue. It will decide. Mid-2000s, the phone calls change tone. Agreements are drawn. Rights are cleared. And the studio signs a promise that sounds like an oath. Complete control. The director returns not as a supplicant, but as the author reclaiming pages. He brings patience, long memory, and a map of every compromise. The rooms feel different now. The question is no longer, can we? It is, how exact can we be? Work becomes meticulous. Negatives are hunted, scanned, compared against the cut he kept alive in talks and notebooks. Color is tempered until the city breathes in its original weather. Sound is cleaned, not prettied. Rhythms are restored to the pulse they once held. Every choice answers a simple test. Does it move like the film he shot, or like the patchwork he resisted? If it reads as patchwork, it goes. But then there's the weight of the label. Calling it final is a dare to cynics and a gift to believers. Marketing leans in, but the director leans harder. He resists new flourishes and nostalgic gloss. He does not need invention. He needs intention. The plan is not to add spectacle. The plan is to remove the insulation that once muffled the heartbeat. The film should feel inevitable, not argued into place. The unicorn dream returns, a whisper that rewrites the man and the chase. The premiere is small, the impact is not. Critics who once parsed the fog now hear a clear voice without narration. Audiences who lived with the story on VHS and midnight screens measure the space and find air again. The mood turns from difficult to decisive. The argument ends not with volume, but with precision. He does interviews and shrugs. This is the film. The case is closed. Here's the part people forget. A closure this clean is also a lever. A director proving a definitive cut can change history becomes a director who can ask for it up front. The restoration is not only a victory, it is currency. He will spend it on the next fight over length, over patience, over whether clarity means explanation or simply trust. Consequence. Authorship moves from plea to precedent. And on another epic, swords, creeds, and a studio that feared the longer road, that precedent will be tested line by line. A crusade drama arrives heavy with ideals, faith, statecraft, mercy in a brutal age. Casts are international, sets are vaulted stone and dust, and the cut glides past 3 hours with the confidence of a road movie that stops only when the soul does. The director frames battles like weather and counsels like duels. He believes patience is the politics. Executives measure patience by showtimes. Theaters can't add screens if a film eats the clock. Marketing worries that grief and doubt don't convert to Friday legs. Preview notes circle length in thick ink. Meetings turn practical, then surgical. The talk shifts from what plays to what must be lost. Rhythms are suddenly inventory. Subplots become spare parts. Character turns are priced in minutes. But then, the order lands. The film must come down, not by inches, but by limbs. Entire strands are lifted, roads of motive, bridges of consequence, silences that carry belief. The plot stands, the architecture leans, the release date stays, the clock smiles, and the director watches the tempo flatten where it once breathed through hesitation. 45-plus minutes are removed from the theatrical release. Opening weekend arrives like weather the forecast got wrong. Audiences see a myth stripped for speed. Reviewers hear ambition but miss coherence. Box office is respectable in totals, but thin in aura. The production that once felt like a cathedral now plays like a tour through a ruined nave. No meltdown, no scandal. Just a film that can't finish its sentences in public. Here's the part people forget. The longer road is not dead. It waits in cans and on drives. Editors rebuild the arteries. Scenes of motive return. A child matters again. A queen earns her shadow. Politics read as tragedy, not rumor. The director's version lands quietly on disc and then loudly in print. Critics revise. Professors nod. The same story, correctly paced, becomes the case study. Consequence. The restoration doesn't only redeem a title, it proves a principle. Length is not indulgence when structure needs air. The victory returns leverage to its owner. And with leverage comes the right to ask, again, for trust, the kind that paid off in other arenas of blood, sand, and steel. A forest built on a soundstage. Dew sprayed by crew before dawn. He chases fairy tale logic with real-world weight, hooves, torches, prosthetics that breathe. The camera drinks in mist, armor, and skin lit like old paintings. He wants innocence on the edge of nightmare. The schedule wants certainty. Executives want a bedtime story that also sells soda. Fantasy is the label. Too strange is the fear underneath. The notes are familiar. Clarify the quest, hurry the romance, simplify the creature rules. Music becomes another battlefield. What tone tells an audience this is not childish, not camp, not ironic? The cut he loves lingers in glances and twilight. The cut they want glides toward daylight and plot. Test cards draw diagonals through poetry. The rooms start to close again. Once more, risk is defined as anything that breathes too slowly. But then the trims arrive in waves. Scenes that plant motive are lifted. Transitions that carry mood are shaved to their edges. A film designed to move like a dream is asked to march like a matinee. The story remains. The spell thins. He fights for silence and shadow, and keeps being offered speed. Editors build bridges with what remains. The bridges wobble. The budget has no patience for arguments that sound like weather reports. Studio-trimmed release underperforms at the box office. After opening, the narrative hardens. Expensive, beautiful, faint. Reviewers praise the look and sidestep the pulse. Audiences split. Some lean into the strangeness. Many don't find the door. The mythology that should feel elemental now feels ornamental. There is no public brawl. No table flip. Just the dull ache of seeing a particular music flattened into a playlist. And the filmmaker stores the feeling beside older wounds. Here's the part people forget. Even in disappointment, influence leaks. Young directors study the light. Designers steal shapes. The forest and the horns migrate into commercials, pop videos, other films that claim the sheen and dodge the risk. The underperformer becomes a quarry for style. He notices. He files it with the lesson that patience without protection dies in editing. Consequence. He pivots from hurt to leverage. The next time ambition meets studio nerves, he will arrive with proof that an audience can meet a vision halfway, if the vision is allowed to finish its sentence. And the pivot to acclaim, the one that reopens the door to awards and clout, is already forming on the horizon. A road unfurls under a western sun. Two friends trade the weight of their lives for first gear and open air. He shoots the car like a creed, speed as confession, landscape as judge. The frame is crisp, the colors hard, the faces unprotected. He is not selling a chase. He is filming the cost of a choice, mile by mile, until freedom and danger become the same noun. Studios see potential and peril. It isn't a four-quadrant promise. It is a story that refuses to flinch. Preview rooms debate tone, responsibility, endings. He argues that the film's honesty is its safety, that the arc earns its final decision. Meetings turn careful. Every word message becomes a tripwire. He keeps the camera close to breath and farther from sermon. The gamble is empathy over lecture. But then the country answers. Audiences recognize their friends, their mothers, their younger selves behind the wheel. Critics hear craft, not speechifying. The movie moves like a verdict that wrote itself. It is not a manifesto. It is a road that arrives at one. His direction chooses patience where a simpler film would choose absolution. The last image refuses rescue and finds myth instead. He leaves the dust to do the talking. 1991, Best Director nomination. The pushback comes too. Commentaries fret about influence, about what the ending teaches. He doesn't blink. He talks about character, about consequence shaped inside a rigged world, about the power of letting a story keep its tone to the final frame. The debate does not bruise the film, it enlarges it. People argue because they care, and because the image will not let them go. Here's the part people forget. That nomination and the cultural burn become a bankable credential. He regains the leverage that heavy fantasy and studio trims had drained. Actors want in, financiers listen longer. He can argue for dusk over daylight and not be shown the door. The industry learns he is not simply a builder of worlds. He is a finisher of sentences, even when the sentence scares them. Consequence. The road film's authority buys capital for a Roman arena and a modern battlefield, projects where patience and scale might collide with commerce again. The camera will get sharper, the budgets will get braver, and when the next fight arrives, he will walk in with proof stamped in gold. Rome rebuilt on a soundstage, sifted sand under heat lamps. He treats scale as intimacy enlarged, blades scraped by hand, crowds extended only where reality runs out. The camera hugs breath, then lets the arena exhale. Spectacle with a pulse, vengeance braided to civic rot. The studio wants a global hit. He wants bones under the armor. At last, meetings sound aligned. The fights land because the silence lands. A farmer remembers a field that won't return. A tyrant mistakes love for ownership. The cutting respects ache between blows. Notes ask for clarity, not comfort. He keeps the ending severe. Test cards question pace, not purpose. Patience, the currency he rarely had, is honored. Then the ledger erupts. Weekends stack. Word of mouth behaves like weather. People who never cared for swords and sand show up twice and bring friends. Historical quibbles drown beneath clean intention. Commerce and craft sprint in the same lane. For a director trained by trims and mandates, the win is more than gross. It proves audiences follow rhythm when rhythm tells the truth. 5 Oscars, including Best Picture. He spends the capital on a modern battlefield, cut like a dispatch. Helicopters scissor the horizon. Radios stutter like nerves. Streets become maps and traps. He refuses victory arcs, choosing procedure, dread, and aftermath. Here's the part people forget. The debate isn't to soften the mission, but to keep viewers oriented without lying about chaos. The result becomes a template, action documented rather than decorated. Audiences track fear without speeches. Critics underline method over sermon. The complaint shifts from too cold to exact. Boardrooms adjust. Consequence. Twin victories, arena and alley. Recalibrate his leverage. Next time politics circle a historical epic, he arrives not as a petitioner, but as a precedent. The lesson hardens into policy. After the arena and the battlefield, he returns to the neon weather that made the fight necessary. Contracts now name control. Schedules respect the slow work of memory and proof. Archivists unbox every ghost. Colorists chase the temperature he carried for decades. Marketing leans into authorship, not apology. Final is no longer a prayer. It's a plan signed in advance. Studios, once wary of ambiguity, discover a commerce in precision. Box sets sell not just films, but arguments resolved. Featurettes turn process into story. Trims, recalls, restorations. Executives who once feared silence learned to advertise it. The audience meets them halfway, arriving not for novelty, but for intention. He doesn't gloat. He treats the victory like a tool he keeps sharpened on the bench. But then comes the quiet audacity. The new master plays in actual theaters, a limited run like a verdict read aloud. No carpet of explanation, no sugar on the ending. The cut breathes exactly as intended, and the response lands without shouting. Reviews that describe clarity where fog once lived. Rooms that feel the difference between patched and pure. The past is updated, not rewritten, and the conversation stops arguing tense. This is the film. Here's the part people forget. The point was never nostalgia. It was precedent. The restoration becomes a template other projects can cite, including his own. When a later epic is shortened for turnover and screens, the longer road returns on disc like a tide that kept the calendar. Critics remeasure, students diagram structure. The phrase director's cut moves from marketing flourish to a promise with teeth. Consequence, control migrates from exception to expectation. He walks into rooms with receipts. Art can sell, patience can travel. Clarity can live without a tour guide. The next chapter is no flashback. It is a forward tilt. And the wrap will ask the only question that still matters. What does a filmmaker owe the film when the room wants the map? He fought for silence, for mood, for the right to finish a sentence. Tests demanded narration. Time demanded trims. Years later, the work returned in his voice. One film proved precedent. Another redemption proved patience can sell. The lesson is simple and hard. Protect the cut before the storm, or rebuild it after. Which version do you believe tells the truth?